Okay, so welcome to the last session of the fifth session of the fourth week lecture, and here we are going to discuss about the impact of HRD program, that how we are going to measure the impact of the HRD processes. You remember we talked about how to assess the needs, then how to design and develop the program, and then after that we talked about the delivery part. Okay. And then we looked at certain models which are used for evaluating the HR performance of the HRD activities. Now, if when you are going to measure the performance of the HRD activities, there are two ways that you can do it. One is that you are going to measure it qualitatively to see what is the feedback of the people about the program, the learners, other things, and similarly you can also measure it quantitatively in terms of change in the performance of the behavior, right. And that is how some companies have started using its ROI model, that is return on invest models, where they try to calculate the direct cost, indirect cost, and then they see that what are the benefits that have been derived out of this program. It means the extent to which the change has been there in the behavior and performance of the people. So, what we are going to discuss here is that how we are going to measure the impact of HRD processes or the program on in the organization. So, when we are talking about HRD program assessment, basically what we are going to look at it, that say ultimately any kind of program that we are going to offer in the name of HRD is basically making certain investment to improve the learning and development of the people, right. So, that they are better equipped in terms of the competencies, knowledge and skill to perform better on the job. Now, in most cases you will find that organizations do not evaluate the performance in financial terms. What they do basically, that they look at the feedback of the people, then they get for some assessments through assessment centers to check whether they have learned something or not. But many organizations do not bother to see the impact of this training in order to see that whether there has been a transfer, whether the people have changed their behavior, whether there is an improvement in the behavior or performance or not, and whether that is being reflected in improved performance, okay, both qualitatively and quantitatively. You remember in Kirkpatrick model we started discussing about 4 levels, that is reaction, okay, then learning, then behavior and finally performance. So, if you look at learning and behavior, which is to be measured after a gap of say some time, when the people are ready to transform themselves by changing their behavior and performance and actually see whether there is a change in behavior or performance or not. Okay. So, this is a kind of investment, and when you make an investment in learning and development activities of the people, then we expect them to change their behavior and performance, right. So, it is very important to assess the impact of these programs both qualitatively and quantitatively. There have been a number of measures that are used. So, the reason is that you have to prove your worth, because many times you will find that senior managers think that all activities on HRD is actually a cost. Okay. You are going to spend some money on training activities, but it does not bring any change in the behavior and the performance. Okay. So, there is no impact, and that is where HRD professionals have to make it a point to ensure that it brings about a change in the behavior and the performance in concrete terms, which is measurable, and that is why there is a need to measure the programs, right. And that is how actually you try to see that yes, you are able to establish your worth for the organization, that you are doing something and then try to see that through people how you can make a difference in the growth and development of the organization. And if you are able to do it, it means that you are able to prove your worth. Now, there are two basic methods of assessing financial impact. Remember we talked about qualitative measures, but now what we are going to discuss is that what is the way through which we can measure it in concrete terms, in pure financial terms. So, what we are going to discuss now is certain methods that are used to measure it in financial terms. So, what we do basically, we try to look at the cost benefit analysis, that is the ROI model, and in this return on investment model, basically we try to evaluate the cost and the benefits. So, first of all we will try to evaluate the training cost. So, there could be different kind of tasks costs associated with the training that you have to quantify, and then you also look at the benefit, and then you go for a cost benefit analysis. And the second one is utility analysis. You see that how useful the training has been, right. So, these are the two major important measures which have been used to assess the financial impact of any HRD program. Now, when we are talking about these two methods, we will start discussing about the first one, that how we are going to calculate the cost benefit analysis in terms of identifying different costs associated with the training, what are the benefits, and say how much you have improved financially or in financial terms so far as training is concerned. Now, how do we go about evaluating training costs? It depends upon a number of factors, right. So, you have to calculate costs, I also calculate benefits. Benefits could be in terms of change in the attitude, reducing the accidents, reduction in the sick days of the employees, improving the quality of the product, increasing the efficiency, reducing the downtime, right. So, there could be a number of factors or matrices that is used in HRD could be used to identify the benefits, and then what you need to do is that you quantify them in monetary terms in order to see that whether the training has a desirable effect on these outcomes or variables which are supposed to be measured, right. So, ROI is nothing else, but you calculate the cost and benefit through which you are going to measure it, right. And then you also go for cost effective analysis. Cost effective analysis, it means that whether there is an increase in certain things or reduction in certain things, like increase in the quality, reduction in the scrap, rework or productivity, whatever it is. So, there are two ways you can do it. First of all, you see that how much benefit you have been able to get by doing certain things, or increasing certain things, or reducing certain things. Reducing like downtime, accidents, turnover rates, right, and improving maybe quality, efficiency, and these kind of things. Okay. So, these two are the major outcomes that could be used in a cost benefit analysis to see the extent to which training has made an impact. Now, when we are going to evaluate training costs, the most important method, as I told you, is return on investments. In previous lecture, we also talked about return on investments, and then we discussed what could be the various costs and what are the various benefits, right. So, when we are talking about cost benefit analysis, basically it is a way to find out the benefits in monetary terms of a training program, right. And then we are using certain methods which are used in accounting and financial measures, right. So, cost benefit analysis basically uses a financial measure or economic measures or economic indicators to find out the economic benefits of a program. And basically it is not only limited to training programs, but it could be applied to other programs. But in this context, you are going to see that exclusively what is the impact of training on performance, right. So, you have to calculate costs which are exclusively related to training and benefits which are due to training program only, because improvement in the performance may be because of the technology also. So, all other external factors have to be isolated, so that you are in a position to calculate the costs associated with the training and the benefits, which are only exclusively due to training. So, that you need to isolate other factors, or you need to control other factors, okay, so that you are able to measure the effect in terms of ROI. And you know that formula that is used is return as results divided by cost multiplied by 100. So, you get it in percentage terms, right. So, benefits divided by costs by 100. So, that is the formula that is used for calculating a return on investment, right. Now, when we are talking about this determining ROI, so you need to identify your benefits and costs in quantitative terms, right. So, you have to determine the costs. Okay. So, you have to see that what is the cost of the training program, and then this cost may include different kind of direct and indirect costs, and that is to be that is where you are going to use certain accounting procedures to find out the costs. Okay. So, when you are going to determine the cost, you have to see that what are the costs which are going to be incurred on conducting different kind of programs, okay, including the resources that is required, okay, and then you have to see that how you are going to calculate the cost. Similarly, you also need to calculate the benefits. Okay. So, benefits could include a lot, it could be related to anything, okay, which is because of the training. It could be change in the behavior, change in the relationship, okay, change in the performance, okay, and that has to be estimated by trainees and their line managers in consultation with the HRD managers, okay, and that is how we calculate the costs and the benefit. Now, when we are talking about training costs, there could be different kind of costs associated with a training program, okay, and this could be classified into three type of costs: direct costs, indirect costs and other costs, right. There are certain costs which could be quantified properly, there are certain costs which cannot be quantified, okay. But we need to evaluate all costs, because you need to calculate the cost in totality, so that you can divide it by benefits, right. So, when I am talking about direct costs, it includes a number of costs like the costs related to the instructors, because you know that any training program, if you are going to hire people from inside, so you are going to give them certain incentives, okay, and if you are going to call them from outside, then all associated costs related to his TA, DA, honorarium, other benefits has to be paid. So, during the period if he is there, so you also calculate the entire cost that you are going to say more related to the instructor. So, all costs which is associated with the instructors have to be accounted in when you are going to calculate the direct cost, because that is what you are going to pay for the program. Okay. Then the costs associated with the materials. So, since you are going to use printed, non-printed materials, videos, CDs and other kind of things, or certain equipments, even if you have taken on rents. So, you have to calculate all costs associated with the materials, and the material costs may include equipments, classrooms, audiovisual equipments. It may also include travel costs, okay, or transportation cost, or when you are going to display certain materials, it also includes travel cost of the participants and other people. It also includes food and refreshments. So, there could be lot of costs which is associated, and this could be properly quantified, because you have spent money on these, whether you are going to related with the material cost, say printed or non-printed, whether it is related to renting a classrooms or using audiovisual equipments, or the travel costs of the participants in the trainers, and the food and refreshment that you are going to serve during the training program. So, all costs associated with this is basically direct costs, which can be calculated by identifying how much you are going to spend on each of these account. Then there are certain indirect costs, and it is very difficult to calculate directly the indirect costs, but you need to find a way out that how to calculate the indirect cost, okay, especially the training management related activities, how the training is managed, because in terms of time, resources are things that the department is going to spend. Okay. So, you need to find a way to quantify these things, so that you can calculate it. Then there are clerical administrative costs in conducting a training program, okay, because you are going to have some person who is going to work on this program in order to organize, coordinate activities. So, whatever time resources you are going to spend, that is to be calculated. Okay. Then all correspondence course related costs, okay, like in postal, telephone, computers that you are going to use. So, you have to have a standard, a benchmark, and then you use these benchmarks depending upon the frequency and the intensity of the use to see that how much each of these items are going to cost you, right. Then pre and post learning materials that you are going to provide, their costs. Then other overhead costs which is not included in these kind of things, okay, which could be related to say supervisors or line managers, as trainees, or even the trainers or the HRD departments. So, there could be certain overhead costs which is not known immediately, but there could be certain costs or what you call the miscellaneous costs that is to be identified, like development and overhead costs. So, development and overhead costs is very important, because you have to see what are the various development costs, right, how much you have paid to get the program, right, whether you have paid to tailor made it depending upon the requirement of your organization or not. Then instructors training costs, if you have gone for a training to the trainer program, and there could be a number of overhead costs like support, resources, staff management participation, you are using utilities and facilities of the organization. So, that also requires certain costs. So, all these kind of costs need to be included when you are going to talk about the development and overhead costs, right. So, this development and overhead costs must be calculated, which may be indirect in nature. So, direct, indirect and these costs have to be found out in order to see what is the total cost, right. And then other administrative costs related to human resource management and these kind of things, which are basically not directly, but indirectly linked with the activities. Here is a sample that is given to you. So, you can see it is a template for calculating the ROI. So, in terms of cost benefit analysis. Now, if you look at this here, you have two basically major costs, that is direct project costs and revenue cost and performance offsets. This is the benefits, right. So, what you are going to calculate here is that these are the different kind of costs like design and development cost, material cost, promotion cost, management and administrative costs, instructor facilitators cost, then participants cost, provided they have to travel somewhere, right, or they are not going to work. So, you are going to have somebody else in their place. So, the replacement cost may be there, other delivery costs which are not known immediately, or training facility and related costs. So, these are the direct costs. Okay. So, calculate the direct cost in monetary terms, then you have other costs like using hard financial measures, say inferred estimated financial measures, behavioral measures that you are going to use and how much it costs, and then this total value has to be calculated in order to find out the total the cost, and then you look at the net benefits that you are going to derive. So, once costs and benefit are known, then what you do? You find out that what is the benefit, what is the cost, and then what is the net benefit that you have arrived. Okay. And then you can calculate it in percentage terms, that is net benefits divided by cost, okay, multiplied by 100. So, it becomes your ROI in percentage, right. That is how you are going to calculate the ROI, or return on investment in a particular program. But it is possible only when you are able to identify all these costs accurately and clearly. In some cases, it is not possible for you to find out or measure the cost. So, you use certain benchmarks or standards, that is in practice, to identify the cost, or in some cases you use certain judgments from the experts to derive at a cost of that particular thing, right. So, after discussing this, let us look at this, that how we go about it. So, this is an example where I have taken up a training program and the various costs, direct costs, indirect costs, development costs, overhead costs, including the compensation to the trainees have been calculated. Okay. So, you can see that what is the cost per trainee, right. Okay. So, for example, you can look at the various direct costs like related to the instructions, in-house instructors, right, the fringe benefits, then travel expenses, the materials, then you have classroom, right, then refreshments, and then the total direct costs. Okay. Now, if you look at this, so these are the various heads. For example, if you find that the instructor is not there, outside you do not have outside extra instructor, you have in-house instructors. So, the cost on in-house instructors is this much, provided if you have an outside instructor, then you are going to have cost over here where it is 0, and this will become here you are going to have some cost, or here it is going to be 0. So, either you have in-house or somebody from outside as a subject matter expert, but provided in some cases you will have in-house as well as some people from outside. So, in that case you are going to identify the cost associated with external instructor as well as internal instructors. Then you also calculate the travel expenses and the material costs, right, including classroom equipments costs, right, depending upon the number of days for which you are going to have program, right. Then you also calculate refreshment costs, okay, per day per person, depending upon the number of training, that see that how it is calculated. So, this gives you an idea about the total costs. Then you move to the indirect costs like training management costs, then clerical administrative expenses, fringe benefits that you have to calculate, then postal shipping and telephone costs, then pre and post training learning materials for all the participants, then that is the total indirect cost, and then the development cost, fees for the program purchase, instructors training, registration fees, travel and lodging, salaries, benefits. So, all this is calculated. So, all once you calculate all this and then also look at the overhead costs, general organization support, overhead, that is 10% of all the costs that is here. Okay. So, the total overhead cost become this much. Now, if you add all this, it means, and sorry, then again you include the compensation for the trainees, okay, because the salary and benefits is the time away from the job. So, that comes out to this much. So, the total training cost comes out to be this much. So, the number of training in this case, if you look at this, is 56 trainees. So, based on 56 trainees, okay, for 3 days, I think, then it comes out to be how much? Look at this. For it comes out to be 587, right. So, this is the cost for training. So, this is once you have calculated the cost, then what you are going to do? Calculate the benefits, right. Now, when we are going to calculate the benefits, so how we are going to calculate in the benefits? In quantity terms, how much change in the quality per unit, a reduction in scrap or rework that is measured, the reduction in accidents, and then you calculate this. So, here also if you remember, when we are talking about this one, so if in this case what you have done, you basically calculated all the costs. Now, once all the costs are calculated, you are also going to calculate the likely benefits that you are going to have. Okay. But this can be calculated only after some time. Okay. Now, here one example is given here, that how we are going to calculate it. So, how it is measured, the benefits, see quality of panels, how much rejection is there. So, 2% rejected, now after training 1.5% is rejected, it means there is an improvement of 5%, and if you are going to express it in rupees, so how much change is there. So, for all activities, see these are the 4 criteria, operational results criteria that has been calculated. Now, if you look at this, what they have done, they have calculated the cost and they have also calculated the benefits. So, how much savings they have made because of changes or improvement in quality, housekeeping, preventable actions, and also return on investment, sorry, preventable accidents. So, these 3 criteria have been taken, and measures were percent of rejections, okay. Then checklist, how much visual inspection has come in terms of identifying the defects, how much accidents have been there. So, if you calculate, this is a design where you are using a pre and post training, right. So, pre training and then you give a gap and then go for post training. So, after training you give them some time and see how much difference have been there. So, here you will find there have been significant improvement, and these are the saving in terms of man days, money and other kind of things, right. So, this has to be quantified. So, this here you look at it, this the total savings have been quantified, and this total saving is divided by the cost, right. So, the cost is 32,560. Remember we talked about the cost, and then we also calculated the benefits. So, benefits divided by the cost, that comes out to be 6.8. So, if you multiply it by 100, so it how much it comes out? 68%. So, it means there has been significant improvement or there is a good return on training on investments, right. So, if you are going to make a investment, even if you are able to convince the management by doing this kind of thing, probably you will be in a better position to tell your management that see how we have make a significant difference, and that is because of the training or these kind of activities, right. So, and that is how we go about calculating both the costs and the benefit of a training program, right. So, apart from ROI method, we also use utility analysis. Utility analysis basically tells you the usefulness of a training program for the current job as well as for the future job, right. And there also we are using certain financial measures. For example, if you look at this, it is also basically cost benefit analysis. Okay. So, what you do basically, you see the difference in the job performance between trained and untrained employees, right. The number of individuals who have been trained, the length of time a training period is expected to influence program, the variability in performance in untrained group of employees, and then look at the difference between that, and then you can say see how useful the training has been. So, this is used. Now, I am giving you a formula that is discussed in the literature, which says that how we go about calculating this, right. So, this is the statistical approach to identify support claims for training effectiveness. So, you can do this kind of analysis For example, if you look at this part, first part, what we did, that you have to identify these 4 things and that is to be calculated. So, in this slide you can see here that n is the number of trainees, then t is the length of benefits, length of time benefits are expected to last. So, and delta dt is true performance difference resulting from training. So, the difference in performance, that is training, and this is SDV is basic y is basically the dollar value or the money value of untrained job performance, especially here you are calculating in terms of standard deviation, how much deviation is there in the performance of the untrained people, and C is the cost of that training. And when you are going to calculate the cost of training, that is basically direct, indirect, development and overhead costs, right. So, if you do this analysis, so then what will happen? You will be able to find out the utility of the program, right. So, this is the formula. So, delta u, that is the utility, is n t multiplied by t multiplied by this multiplied by this minus c. So, that is how you calculate the utility of the training program, right. So, this approach can also be used to identify the utility of the program, basically to convince the top management whether this program is effective or not and whether you should go for this kind of program or not, right. So, there are 2 important methods that we have talked about, ROI and utility approach. Now, when you are going to measure ROI, basically you are using certain metrics to identify the cost and benefits. Okay. So, if you look at this slide, you will find a number of HRD matrices that could be used to identify these kind of things, right. How much you are going to spend per employees, how much learning hours are there for each employee, because you need to maintain a database related to this about the expenditure on training and development activities of the employees, man days that is spent on training, right. How much money you are going to spend on training as a part of the, as a percentage of the pay, right. And then how much revenue are generating and what percentage of revenue are going to spend on training activities, and what is the cost per learning hour that people trainees are receiving, or what is the percent of expenditure on external services that is required for conducting a training program, and learning hour received per training and development staff member, right, that you can calculate. Then average percent of learning activities outsourced, how much it is outsourced, or percentage of learning content by content area in different see the training is to be given in different areas, maybe basic skills, maybe computer, maybe leadership development. So, if you look at this, so you can classify what are the percentage of learning that is going to be there in different areas. It means that what are the different areas in where you are going to offer training program, okay, and how much you are spending on those kind of activities, right. And finally, you have to see that how much you are going to provide in terms of percentage of learning hours, okay, for different kind of methods, right. So, there could be different kind of metrics that could be used to measure the effectiveness of the training program, right. So, it is very important to improve the assessment in financial terms, because ultimately you need to talk in terms of money, and if you are able to convince the management about the benefits of an HRD program in terms of improving behavior performance, then probably you will be in a better position and you will be able to prove your worth to the management and the organization, right. And that is where you are going to be a part of the strategic planning process, right. And then you can involve management in HRD planning and estimation efforts, okay, because it is mutually beneficial for both the employees and the organization as well as the management, right. And then you have to use both conservative estimates as well as credible estimates in financial and non-financial terms to convince about the benefits of conducting a training program in financial and non-financial terms. So, that management is convinced and you prove your worth, and you will be able to talk in terms of money, that in what way you are going to impact the bottom line of the organization or the performance of the organization, right. And at the same time, while you are going to take credit for success, but if it is not happening, suppose for certain reasons the benefits are not derived, then you should accept the responsibility for not being successful, and then you try to find out and investigate the reason for failures of these kind of programs. So, that you can see where the fault lies and at which stage, the assessment stage, delivery stage, design stage or evaluation stage. So, that you can correct it in future, right. So, that is all. Thank you.